I'm John Griesbach with Diamond H2O. Welcome to Diamond U, created with the mission of educating our team members and customers to promote growth and understanding of our shared industry and diamond products. Today we're going to be talking about the Reliant XL and the FE iron filter. We're going to be tearing apart the valve, and I'll be going through how to depressurize the system, bypass the system, and remove the motor, the discs, seals, our screen, and injector. So let's get started. First off, when you walk up to your unit, you're going to identify the bypass, because we're going to need to close the bypass so that way water is no longer going to the water softener or filter. Your bypass is located in the rear of the control valve. When the handles are parallel with the plumbing, the valve is open. To close this valve, turn it a quarter of a turn on each side. Now the unit is in bypass. The water will come in, go through this channel, and out the bypass, back to service. These valves tend to be a little bit sticky over the years or as time goes by without being turned. If you need to, use a channel locks. Just make sure that you're not forcing anything and turning in the proper directions. Everything does have arrows on. It's a little bit difficult to see if you can't look down at it. However, it's just a quarter turn to turn it off. Next thing we're going to want to do to relieve the pressure is you're going to want to start a manual regeneration. So go up to your unit and press and hold the recycle symbol. Hold it in until an hourglass shows up on your display. The unit is now turning the motor to cycle 1, which is backwash. In this cycle, it will relieve the water pressure from the unit. You'll hear water run down the drain for a brief moment, and then it should stop. If the water does not stop, we're going to want to confirm a few things. Make sure your bypass is closed, or we're going to have to shut off the main valve. There may be something else going on that's not allowing the water to turn off. You don't want to try opening it up while it's under pressure. So now we are in backwash. The pressure has been relieved. You can remove the cover. To remove the cover, it is on the top here. You're going to just spread the rear apart. Inside the cover, there's 2 tabs. They just click onto the back plate. Set the cover to the side. What you're going to now do is you're going to disconnect the power. To disconnect the power, what you're going to do is tip the faceplate forward. To do this, there's a tab on the left-hand side of the control. Press that tab in, the control will tip forward. What you can then do is remove the AC adapter from the rear of the control. Pull the adapter off and set it to the side. You can put the control back in place so it doesn't get knocked off or damaged in any way. Next, we will remove the motor. Not all controls will have this tab left on it if it's been serviced or if this tab fell out. It's not a big deal, it's just there for shipping. However, if you do have it, I always recommend to replace it. So you're going to push the white tab out of the rear of the motor, and you're going to give the motor a slight turn and pull it out. The motor is now disconnected. You can leave that hang right on the back of the unit. Now we've got to remove the cam. To remove the cam, you simply push down slightly and pull back. Lifts straight up, and you pull it to the side. The cam is now off. What you have to be careful for here is you have your optical sensor back here. It's very easy to dislodge the optical sensor. However, it is just as easy to put it back in. So, cam is off. We'll set that to the side with our little pin. Next, we have to remove this one-piece spring. The spring holds each of the discs in place. So what you can do is just take a flathead screwdriver and pop all the springs off the tabs. You don't have to be fancy with this. It'll just pop up Once you get about halfway, you'll find the spring just wants to pop out. Pretty simple. This has exposed all of our screws. So, next step, take your Phillips head screwdriver and remove all the screws. This will expose our discs. Set your screws to the side. Now you can remove the top plate. One more thing you're going to want to remove is your meter cable. That's sticking through the rear here. Just push up on the tab. It'll pull through towards the center. And you have it out. Goes in just as easy. Now you're able to pull the top plate off. Don't worry if some of the discs stick to the top plate. That's no problem. What you're going to want to do is make sure that the bottom of this is clean. If it's dirty, clean it up. Then you can remove all your individual discs. These are all rubber discs. A few of them are interchangeable. Most of them you can't mix them up. Remove the discs. This is a brand new valve, so the discs are very clean. In many cases where there's iron or any other problems, these discs tend to be quite dirty. Also in the valve it gets quite dirty. At this point I would say set this to the side. If your valve is extremely dirty and you need to clean beyond this point or beyond just cleaning the discs, to soak it, remove the discs, remove all the other ports, and you can soak it in an iron out product that will help in your cleaning process. You can set that to the side. While I've got this off, while I've got the water off, I will also show you how to clean the screen. The screen is in the left-hand side of the unit. I've got this torque wrench. You can use a large flathead screwdriver as well. Works just as good. Key with all this stuff is O-ring seals. Don't need to over-torque them. So when you put it back in, a little silicone, 100% silicone grease is what's recommended for these O-rings. Throw some back on there. You'll be good to go. Just don't over-torque them. This is the screen. You just want to scrub it up with a little bit of water. It does come off. It does just clip apart. Pretty straightforward. If this is plugged completely, it can cause problems with your grind draw, maybe even restricting it completely. You can clean that and replace it. Around the right-hand side of the unit, you'll find this is where our injector is located. Up front is our refill. There's just a ball in there. Not a lot of reason to have to take that apart. To get at the injector, we remove the cap. You'll see a colored injector in there. What you need to do is take a needle nose pliers, put one end inside the hole, one end on the outside of the hole, grab firmly, and pull straight out. Your injector has a small end and a big end. The small end goes in first. If this is plugged, you will look through the center of it from both ways. Flip it both ways in the light, look through the center of it. There's also a center gap that you can clean out as well. It's recommended that you don't shove anything hard like a needle or a nail or anything through there. Any scoring on the injector can cause it to draw different. Sometimes it's necessary to pick at it a little bit with the end of a needle or something sharp. Be very careful when doing that. We recommend using compressed air or water to try to flush that out. Once it's clean, blow through it from both sides and just inspect it from both sides to make sure that it's 100% clear, that the hole is 100% round, and that nothing is left in there. If anything is in there, you will not draw properly. You can go ahead and push the injector back in. You'll feel it kind of go past the O-rings. Same thing, you can grease all O-rings with 100% silicone grease and replace it back into the valve. Now that everything is cleaned up, we can go ahead and start the reassembly process. What we're going to want to do is just make sure we put our discs back in the proper directions, in the proper holes. Some of these discs are multi-directional. And if you do ever have a problem with one of the discs leaking, one thing you can always look at is the imprint on the disc itself. The imprint it seals on the right-hand side of the valve. If there's ever an odd-looking line, it should be a very even, very pronounced impression on there. If there's ever a scar or where you can tell that something was stuck in there, it's just an indication to look in the valve, try to remove whatever debris was in there causing the problem. You can also lubricate these if they seem dry. So we got all our discs in place, they're all straight up and down. What we will now do is replace our top plate. Just going to want to carefully look down across the top, and all the discs will simply just pop through and they'll show there. Next thing we're going to want to do is start the screws. You can start the screws by putting a few screws in individual holes. One thing I stress is don't tighten one screw down, then go to the next one. You can work it a little bit like tightening a tire. Work it from side to side, front to back, back and forth, torquing things down slowly. Also, one trick, if you're having trouble, because this is threading into a plastic valve, is slightly thread the screw backwards first until it falls into place. Once you feel it fall into place, you can then tighten it down. Alright, once you have all these screws down, just go ahead and run up and down, make sure that they're all torqued down completely. Don't need to over tighten them, just make sure they're snug down. Alright, now that everything's tight, we are going to replace the spring. Got the one-piece spring again. Be careful, the edges are sharp, or can be sharp. What you're going to want to do is put the flat end of the spring in the groove first. You're going to see there's some posts on the valve that the spring will line up with. If I get that right here. Lining up, and this part is a little difficult from the standpoint. You need to just be patient. You need to hold one end down while you start the other. And what we're going to do is we're going to start pushing our springs back into place. There. Once you feel kind of clip in there. And what you do, we'll go back to the flathead side of our screwdriver here. You just push straight down on the center of them, and they'll clip right directly into the center of your discs. Again, this process sometimes takes 1 or 2 tries until you get used to it. And it'll clip in. Key is, if it does pop out, to just hold it into place. Alright, once you have it all in place, it will then hold itself in. Next, we can replace the cam. On the camshaft, this is probably the most important part when it comes to putting it back on. There is an arrow on the front. You've got the front of the cam, which has all the little slots in it. There's an arrow. That arrow will line up with an arrow right behind the controller here. You can get it on without lining them up, however this just simplifies it for you so that way it slides into place a little easier. what you do, identify the arrow in the front again. Go ahead and slide the rear of the cam into the hole. Make sure that your optical sensor is in place. Hold your cam all the way to the back with the arrow in the up position. Push against your discs. Line the front of the cam up with your optical sensor. It's going to go right in between the U shape of that optical sensor, and it's going to slide forward right into place. Very simple, very easy. One of the keys, again, is lining up the arrow. Next, we can go ahead and replace the motor. We've got the white peg that I will replace. Take the motor, line it up. You're going to get it as close to where it's locked in on the top and the bottom as possible. The front end of the motor will line up with a hole inside by the cam. And you're going to give it that little bit of a turn, that eighth of a turn, and replace the peg. If the peg is not there, as soon as you add power to the motor, it will tighten. It doesn't run in reverse, therefore it holds itself tight. Next, replace your meter cable. To do this, just come from the inside out. It is keyed, so it only goes in one way. It slides through and clips on. You'll hear it clip. It'll be locked in there. Now what we can do is grab our power cable, coming in from the rear and utilizing the chaseway on the controller or on the top plate. You can run your cable in, tip your controller forward for easy access, and go ahead and plug the controller back in. Now again, we have unplugged it when it was in backwash. So right now, the system is still in backwash. And what you're going to want to do is turn the inlet open slowly. Start by just cracking it. You're going to hear water start flowing. And you can just open it up slowly until you're wide open. You can also open the outlet at this point. Just check for leaks. Make sure that everything looks good. There's nothing dripping. And what we're going to want to do at this point is step it through the cycles. To quick step it through the cycles, press the square button and the up arrow, press and release, an hourglass will come up. It will then move to the next cycle. Shows C2, cycle 2 is your draw cycle. Right now, on all Reliant Excels and FE series iron filters, you should be getting a suction. It should be drawing either the salt water or the potassium permanganate chemical out of your brine storage tank. If it is not drawing, that means that either the injector is plugged again or that something else is going on. Example would be a restricted drain. At this point, if it is drawing, great. Step it. You can go ahead and step it all the way through, finish the cycle. You can either do that by individually pushing and releasing through each cycle, or you can go ahead and press and hold the square and up arrow until the hourglass blinks. When the hourglass starts blinking, that's an indication that it's going to go from whatever cycle it is in to the end, to home position, putting you back into treated water. Once you're back in treated water, now would be a good time to regenerate the system. Because we're cleaning it due to a problem, the system probably hasn't regenerated properly for a while. So go ahead and press and hold the regeneration button, initiating the cycle, and allow it to go through. Last thing you need to do, replace the cover. check to make sure that you've opened your bypass, and you should be good to go. Thanks for joining us today. Check back to Diamond H2O for more videos and trainings in the future. Thanks.